Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome back to our news channel. Actually, I've been trying to perfect my American accent, so I'm going to use it for a bit today. So, I had the most amazing, well, not like amazing, but like the most intriguing week. This week, it was a lot, like a whole lot, you guys. Yeah, I think I could pull off an American. If I go to Yankee, I'm not coming back. They will not catch me because I will pull off the accent so well. Anyway, if you're new here, this is Nirruption's news channel. This is the African segment. And I have a very, very fun riddle for you guys today. I don't know if you liked my riddles last week, but you like this one. Now, you see a boat filled with people. It hasn't sunk, but when you look again, you don't see a single person on the boat. Why is that? I'm going to take it again. You see a boat filled with people. It has not sunk, but when you look again, you don't see a single person on the boat. Why? Yes, rack your brains. Why? Very quickly, how do we gather our news? Our news is gathered very randomly without any particular focus on any topic, be it political, business, technological, or cultural. We really just throw ourselves out there and try to find out what is happening for you guys. We gather news this way because we want to be as open to as many sources as possible and still be as balanced as possible. We read the stories directly from our sources so that their point of view are not changed. Our methodology is not perfect, and if you think we can improve on this, do let us know. For the meantime, we hope you enjoy today's episode. So, who are these week's news sources? We have Tech Cabal, Food Business Africa, Africa News, The Guardian, BBC, and All Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna take you around Africa in 30 minutes. First off, Safaricom to launch commercial operations in Ethiopia. Safaricom, the largest telecommunications provider in Kenya, is set to launch commercial operations in Ethiopia later this year. This announcement was made by Safaricom CEO Peter Ndegwa while sharing the telco's financial statement for the year ended March 31st, 2022. Last week. We have made our first test call, sent the first test SMS, and completed the first test data session, Ndegwa said on Twitter. We have a strong team of 300 employees, with half of them being Ethiopian. Safaricom increased its service revenue by 12.3% to 281.11 billion Kenyan shillings. That's about 2.42 billion US dollars. And they increased their profit by 13.5% to 109.13 billion Kenyan shillings. That's about 940 million US dollars, according to its latest financial report. Voice service revenue grew by 0.8% to 83.21 billion Kenyan shillings. That's 720 million US dollars. Mobile data revenue grew by 8.1% to 48.44 billion Kenyan shillings. That's about 420 million US dollars. While M-Pesa revenue grew by 30.3% to 107.69 billion Kenyan shillings. Safaricom Ethiopia plans to bring mobile financial services to Ethiopia. However, this is subject to the licensing and regulatory process by the government of Ethiopia. Up next, Shoprite Checkers establishes 599 million US dollars evergreen broad-based Black Economy Empowerment Employee Trust. So the broad-based Black Economy Empowerment is a policy introduced by the South African government to help Black communities, just to reduce inequality. So, JSE listed retailer Shoprite Holdings through its subsidiary Shoprite Checkers Propriety Limited has formed an employee trust with 40 million Shoprite Checkers shares valued at 8.9 billion rand. That's about 599 million US dollars. The supermarket chain owner, through the newly formed trust, has effectively increased Black empowerment ownership in the subsidiary to 19.2%. The trust's 40 million shares will be split into 4 million Class A shares and 36 million Class B shares. According to the company, its South African employees, currently totaling 126,000, will benefit directly through the Shoprite Employee Trust as unit holders, while non-RSA employees, of which there are currently 16,000, will receive equivalent benefits through their respective payroll. The transaction is in line with the Shoprite Group's core values of recognizing the valued role its employees play in the growth and success of the Shoprite Group, stated Shoprite. The Shoprite Employee Trust has been established on a non-vesting evergreen basis, which will be primarily facilitated by Shoprite Checkers on a notional basis. This is aimed to create a long-term B-BBEE shareholder in Shoprite Checkers for the benefit of the Shoprite Group's employees. Meanwhile, in South Sudan, 28 are killed in attempted cattle raids. 28 people have been killed and 30 wounded in attempted cattle raids in northern South Sudan on Sunday and Monday. A local security official confirmed the incident on Tuesday, adding that the attacks were carried out in Lear County, Unity State, by armed youths from neighboring Mayendit and Koch countries. They, that is the armed youths, came and attacked our position. 10 of our people are dead, Lear County Commissioner Stephen Taker told AFP, saying the victims were young herdsmen and a woman. On their side, 18 people died, he added, saying at least 30 other attackers were also injured. Lear County is one of the most affected areas in South Sudan, which has been living with political, economic, and also security instability since its independence from Sudan in 2011. This region has been one of the epicenters of the humanitarian crisis caused by the civil war between the two enemies, Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, a native of Lear County, between 2013 and 2018, which has left nearly 400,000 people dead and millions of people displaced. Up next, Niger president says Mali's withdrawal marks, quote unquote, death of G5 Sahel alliance. Niger's president has said Mali's withdrawal from the G5 Sahel, a multinational force created to fight Islamist militants, will mark the end of the alliance. President Mohamed Bayoum made the remarks in an interview with French daily La Croix. Bayoum said Mali's isolation was undermining the fight against insurgents. Bamako this week announced that it was quitting the G5 Sahel after being blocked from assuming the group's rotating presidency. It blamed a state outside the region for trying to foment divisions among the member states. Created in 2014, the alliance, which also includes Mauritania, Chad, Burkina Faso, and Niger, was to help the countries jointly tackle Islamist militants. Since 2020, Mali's ties with former colonial ruler France have continued to deteriorate. This month, Bamako ordered French troops off its soil, prompting condemnation from Paris. Meanwhile, Egypt is set to privatize key state companies as inflation surges. So the inflation is really everywhere. It's not just Nigeria. It's actually ravaging a lot of countries currently. So the Egyptian Prime Minister, Mustafa Madbouli, has announced a series of planned privatizations of state-owned companies as the country struggles with an economic crisis and inflation at almost 15% in April. The strategy unveiled by the government includes the privatization of 10 public companies, 2 of which belong to the army, and the creation of 2 listed companies, one of which will absorb the 7 main Egyptian ports, and the other, the country's best hotels, Mr. Madbouli told journalists. While there are no credible figures on the weight of the military in the economy, the army claimed in 2019 to supervise more than 2,300 projects, employing 5 million civilians. Since 2017 and again in April, non-oil private sector activity has remained contracted, reflecting a glaring lack of dynamism. These announcements had been expected since early May, when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi had called on his government to establish a privatization strategy with the aim of bringing 10 billion euros per year over a period of 4 years into the state coffers. On Sunday, Madbouli also said that the complete empowerment of the private sector by 2025 was part of Cairo's strategy to deal with the economic crisis. He called for private sector participation in total investments to be increased to 65%, more than double the current 30%. Now, for many, the state is competing unfairly with the private sector. The state should have a regulatory role and not be a shareholder. This is what Naguib Sawiris, one of the country's richest men, told AFP in 2021. Struck by the economic impact of the war in Ukraine, galloping inflation, and huge public spending on infrastructure, Egypt recently devalued its currency by 17%. Up next, IMF grants aid to Mozambique 6 years after a financial scandal. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, on Tuesday granted a 432 million euro loan to Mozambique, the first since it withdrew 6 years ago at the time of the so-called quote-unquote hidden debt scandal involving the government. The outline of the deal was announced in late March. The IMF said in a statement, "These provisions will support the economic recovery and the measures put in place to reduce public debt and financial vulnerabilities. This program supports the government's ambitious reform plan," it added. In 2016, one of the country's biggest corruption scandals broke in Mozambique. Secret loans worth almost 2 billion euros were granted by foreign banks to Mozambican public companies and guaranteed by the state. Meanwhile, in Congo, Majority MP faces 30 years prison sentence. A member of the Congolese parliament has been sentenced in absentia to 30 years with hard labor and a heavy fine, the High Court of Justice said on Wednesday. The deputy, Ghislaine Galibali, was found guilty of the acts attributed to him, including the offense of forgery and the use of forgery and swindling for wages, said Henry Boka, president of the High Court of Justice. Mr. Ghislaine Galibali is sentenced to 30 years of hard labor, he said. The court accused Ghislaine Galibali, aged 51, of having provided a false diploma of development engineer, which allowed him to be recruited as an agent of the Road Fund, a public agency for the maintenance of roads across Congo. The employer paid him a large salary for 14 years, the court said. Thus, for forgery, Ghislaine Galibali must pay within 2 years the sum of 101.3 million FCFA. That's more than 152,000 euros to the road fund in terms of reimbursement of salaries, the court said. The parliamentary immunity of Mr. Galibali, elected deputy for the Lekana constituency in the Plateau in 2017, had been lifted during a special session of the National Assembly shortly before the opening of his trial on the 13th of May before the High Court of Justice. During the hearings, Mr. Galibali, who is not in the country, was represented by a lawyer. The court heard only the two prosecution witnesses and the director of the Road Fund, an AFP journalist, noted. Up next, headlines say that Kenya has raised minimum wage by 12% as inflation soars. Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced a 12% increase in the minimum wage to offset soaring living costs. This announcement on Sunday, that's the 1st of May, comes a few months ahead of the presidential and parliamentary elections. Inflation hit a 7-month high in the East African country in April, mainly driven by soaring fuel and food prices, according to official figures. We believe it is imperative to review the minimum wages to protect our workers from further deterioration, Kenyatta told a Labor Day rally. The 12% increase raises the minimum monthly wage from 13,500 Kenyan shillings, about 110.5 euros or $116, to 15,120 shillings, that's 124 euros or $130. However, this is far from the 24% increase demanded by the main trade union organization, Central Organization of Trade Unions, Kenya. I don't know, I think they should be glad that they got a certain percentage out of 24. I think that's half because they got 12%. Because in Nigeria, we are rallying for what we're even rallying for, we've not seen. I mean, that's the reason for the strike, and a lot of other things. Next up, fury as white South African student urinates on books and laptops of a black student. Okay. Stellenbosch University in the Western Cape has come under fire after a video of a white student urinating on the computer and books of a black student went viral on social media. The incident reportedly happened on Sunday, May 15, 2022, around 4 at Jose Maria residence while the black first-year student was sleeping. An off-camera student asks him, "Why are you peeing in my room?" The young man with short brown hair and a beige hooded jacket laconically replies, "I'm waiting for someone," without interrupting what he is doing. The university strongly condemns the destructive, hurtful, and racist incident in a statement on Monday. The university announced that it had immediately suspended the first-year student who was captured in the act. "We are appalled by this type of behavior," said Vice President Wim de Villiers. "No student has the right to violate the dignity or rights of another student in this way." According to a student union, the victim was sleeping when he heard a noise in his room. When he woke up, the racist white boy was urinating on his desk, books, and laptop. And when questioned, the racist response was that this is what we do to black boys. The Congress of South African Students said in a statement, the university's student representatives, a white majority in a black majority country, argued that the incident was representative of the evil inflicted on minorities, namely black students. Protests broke out on campus on Monday, with students of all skin colors taking part. In a new development, the family of a 20-year-old Black student who was the victim of a suspected racial incident at the university say they will open a criminal case against the alleged perpetrator, local media reported on Tuesday. I mean, how can you go around urinating on people's stuff? That's just ghetto behavior. I mean, that's just wrong on so many levels. Up next, there are clashes in Tripoli as would-be prime minister attempts to claim power. Fighting broke out in Tripoli after one of the two rival Libyan prime ministers entered the capital to claim the role, only to flee hours later when he realized he had misjudged the scale of military opposition. Fathi Bashhaga, I think, said he had retreated to prevent further bloodshed, and later said that he would base his government in the city of Sirte. It was clear he found that the levels of militia support he had been promised were not forthcoming. He had entered the city in secret overnight with the support of one powerful armed group, the 8th Brigade, but it found itself isolated and no other support arrived from outside the city. In statements before his retreat, Bashaga's camp made it clear they had planned to take control of the government and claimed he had received a warm reception in the capital. The bulk of the clashes occurred around dawn. There has been stalemate in Libya with rival groups claiming to run the country. Parliamentary and presidential elections planned for last December had to be shelved as the eligibility of various candidates was disputed and there was no consensus that the result would be honored. Bashaga's retreat not only damages him personally and his efforts internationally to portray himself as a unifying figure, but it is a boost for the caretaker Prime Minister based in Tripoli, Abdul Hamid Dbeibah. Meanwhile, in Algeria, 11 migrants die in boat wreck while trying to reach Europe. 11 migrants have reportedly drowned after their boat sank off the Algerian coast of Tipaza on Sunday evening. International Center for the Identification of Missing Migrants, CIPIMD, a Spanish NGO, said that a boat carrying 16 migrants had set sail from North Africa for Spain's Balearic Islands. 11 haragas, that's an Arabic nickname for illegal migrants, who had set sail from Fuka near Tipaza, died, and 5 young people, including 2 children, were rescued. The private television channel El Hayat TV reported on its Facebook page. Photos of the victims have gone viral on social media. According to Algerian social media users, the victims hail from the town of Fouka in the Tipaza prefecture, 70 kilometers west of Algiers. They were in the water for 14 hours before being picked up by an Egyptian ship, which handed them over to the Algerian authorities, according to internet users. According to a report published by the Ministry of Defense, the Coast Guards foiled illegal immigration attempts and rescued 172 people on board homemade boats between 4th and 11th of May. In 2021, 4,404 migrants died or disappeared while trying to reach Spain by sea, the worst toll since 2015, according to Spanish NGO Caminando Fronteras. Up next, Zuma trial postponed pending Supreme Court of Appeal decision. South African former President Jacob Zuma's graft case resumed Tuesday. The Pietermaritzburg High Court judge, however, postponed the trial to a holding date in August. His move enables the judge president of the Supreme Court of Appeal to give her final say on the reconsideration application filed by Jacob Zuma's defense. Despite the High Court and Supreme Court of Appeal dismissing their application in February, the former president's legal team later wrote to Judge Mandisa Maya. Zuma's defense has been pushing for the removal of Chief Prosecutor Billy Downer, accusing him of being biased. 80-year-old Zuma pleaded not guilty to charges of corruption, money laundering, and racketeering over a deal with French arms firm Thales in the 1990s, when Zuma served as South Africa's deputy president. Tuesday's adjournment is the latest in the former ANC leader corruption case. He failed to turn up for the resumption of his corruption trial last April, citing ill health. His case has been postponed multiple times since it opened in May 2021. Meanwhile, in Guinea-Bissau, the president dissolves the parliament, calls for early elections. Guinea-Bissau's president, Umaru Sissoco Embalo, dissolved the country's parliament on Monday and called for parliamentary elections by the end of the year. In an address to the nation, the president cited persistent and unresolvable differences with the legislative body. He called for early parliamentary elections in December. I have decided to give the floor back to the people of Guinea so that once again this year they can freely choose at the ballot box the parliament they wish to have for an 11th term, the president said. The parliament, I beg your pardon, has long been dominated by the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde. President Embalo's party, Madam G15, did not secure the majority of the seats during the 2019 election, which fueled tensions between the legislative and the executive branch. Corruption and embezzlement is also one of the issues raised by Embalo to explain his move. The 10th legislature has turned the People's National Assembly into a place of political guerrilla, warfare, and conspiracy. Many deputies have worked to weaken the institutions of the Republic instead of doing everything possible to strengthen them. Guinea-Bissau's path to stability has been arduous. Despite elections, the country has seen coups or attempted coups since it gained independence from Portugal in 1974, the latest of which took place in February and cost the life of 11 people. During what was described as a failed coup, perpetrators killed 11 people. Meanwhile, over in Chad, there has been an arrest of opposition leaders over anti-France protest. 5 opposition leaders were charged and jailed on Monday in Chad for disturbing public order during a Saturday demonstration against France, accused of supporting the military junta, the prosecutor's office told AFP. When President Idriss Déby Itno was killed more than a year ago at the front against rebels, his son, General Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno, took over the reins of the country at the head of a group of 15 generals who were immediately endorsed by the international community, with Paris in the lead, while other coup officers were subjected to its wrath and sanctions elsewhere in Africa. 7 gas stations belonging to the French oil company Total were vandalized and 12 police officers injured on Saturday during an anti-French demonstration by hundreds of people, according to a police official who requested anonymity. 5 leaders of the main opposition coalition, Wakit Tama, which organized the march, were arrested in the process. Meanwhile, 40 are killed in 3 attacks by suspected jihadists in Burkina Faso. The most deadly attack targeted the Volunteers for the Defense of the Fatherland, VDP, in the town of Busei in the Sahel region, north, killing some 20 people, including 8 VDP, according to one of their leaders. Burkina Faso has been the target of jihadist attacks since 2015, perpetrated by armed movements, some of which are affiliated to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group, and which have left more than 2,000 dead and 1.8 million displaced. There's been an uproar after embassies fly gay pride flags in Zambia. Swedish and Finnish embassies in Zambia are facing a backlash in the country after raising the rainbow flag along with their own national flags on their premises on Tuesday. Same-sex relationships are outlawed in Zambia, where British colonial-era laws on homosexuality still apply. The Swedish embassy in Zambia tweeted the rainbow flag using the hashtag Idahot 2022, which stands for International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Intersexism, and Transphobia. LGBTIQ rights are human rights, always and everywhere, the tweet said. The Finnish ambassador also tweeted, standing together for human rights. Idrissa Gueye refuses to wear PSG shirt featuring rainbow symbol. Paris Saint-Germain's Idrissa Gueye refused to play in a match to avoid wearing a rainbow symbol in support of the LGBTQ+ rights. BBC Sport understands. The 32-year-old former Aston Villa and Everton midfielder was absent from Saturday's 4-0 win over Montpellier. PSG boss Mauricio Pochettino said only that Senegalese Gueye missed the game for personal reasons. The French Football Federation, FFF, has reportedly written to Gueye to clarify why he was absent. BBC Sport has approached Gueye's representatives for comment. Crystal Palace's Cheku Kouyaté and Watford's Ismaila Sarr have posted on social media in apparent support of the Senegal teammates' stance. Up next, no trapped miners were found in Burkinabe's rescue chamber. No survivors have been found in a rescue chamber of a zinc mine in Burkina Faso after 8 miners got trapped hundreds of meters underground by flood waters last month. The mine has 2 chambers and they are a place of safety and contain essential supplies like water and food. The rescue teams have opened the refuge chamber, estimated to be at a depth of about 570 meters, and unfortunately it is empty, Reuters quotes the government information service as saying. The mine, which is owned by Canadian firm Trevali, has a depth of more than 710 meters, that's about 2,329 feet, and a second rescue chamber is located at the bottom. The search is ongoing according to the same information service and will continue until any person is found, alive or dead. The mine is located about 100 kilometers, 60 miles west of the capital. Last week, the Canadian mine owners said search crews were working 24 hours a day to find the workers. The case has caused an outrage in Burkina Faso as rescue operations only got underway following protests and a sit-in at a government building at a nearby town 5 days after the floods. The area saw heavy thunderstorms on the 16th of April that cut off electricity and communications. Up next, Rwanda genocide accused Mikomeza denies crimes in court. The New Times reports that 49-year-old Jean-Paul Mikomeza who is accused of participating in the genocide against the Tutsi ethnic group in 1994, is appearing in court. Michael Miza was recently extradited from Sweden at the request of Rwanda. The prosecution is accusing Michael Miza of various charges, including murder, complicity to commit genocide, rape, causing permanent injuries, and crimes against humanity. That's a lot of things to be accused of. Michael Miza was accompanied by 3 lawyers who immediately raised 2 objections and requested the suspension of the hearing. Michael Miza denied all charges, arguing that he was not part of the Interahamwe, the main perpetrators of the genocide, and that he never belonged to any political party during the atrocities. The prosecution requested to remand him, arguing that he might interfere with the investigation, escape justice, or threaten witnesses. The court will rule on the bail application on the 19th of May, 2022. So, back to the riddle in the beginning. Do you remember the riddle? It goes, you see a boat filled with people. It has not sunk, but when you look again, you don't see a single person on the boat. Why? So the answer is because all the people were married. Yeah, so that's why you don't see a single person on the boat. I hope you guys have a great week. This rounds up the African news segment. I am Emediong Udoh, and I will see you lovely people next week.